Welcome back. As you can see, I'm in a different setting this week. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm right now on my back patio and it needs some attention. I built these lounge chairs and this lounge bench a couple years ago. They're dusty, dirty. The cushions have been in storage for a little while because we have a lot of squirrels in our yard and the squirrels just get to them. So we have to keep them put away when they're not in use. My plan is to pull them out of storage, give them a good cleaning, and spruce this area up a little bit. When we first bought this house a couple of years ago, we did plan on completely remodeling the bathrooms. One of those bathrooms, our primary bathroom, had quite a bit of white vintage tile around the tub surround. And we did end up removing that and replacing it with a different tile. However, it came off really nicely and I really liked the tile. I wanted to keep it and repurpose it for something else. And over the past couple of years, I have seen these really interesting cube-shaped tables made completely out of tile. And for a while now, I've been wanting to replace this coffee table with something else. It was just something that I picked up secondhand. It was a cheap table. It's not meant for outdoor use. There is some signs of wear and tear. There's some rust. There's some swelling on the bottom shelf. And it was never my intention to keep this long term. It was just a placeholder in the meantime. So come along with me this week as I design and create a new coffee table for my own outdoor area. I want to start off by taking some inventory of these tiles. It's been a couple years since we've removed these, and I simply don't remember how many I have. They've been sitting in my storage shed for a long time, so they're really dirty, really dusty. They need a good cleaning, a good scraping. When we did remove them, it had some of the old grout still stuck to the corners and edges. There was some of the old caulking that needed to be scraped off. These porcelain tiles did have a glossy surface, so I knew that getting that debris off was going to be pretty simple. It just took a little bit of elbow grease. After calculating out all the tiles that I had and the rough size that I wanted this table to be, I determined a 5x5 square would be that perfect size, and I had enough material to accomplish it. I want to make sure to put the spacers in so that I know exactly how large to build the framing that these tiles are going to sit on. And once all those spacers are in, I can go ahead and measure the actual dimensions of what each one of these sides of this 5-sided cube are going to need to be. I went to the hardware store and picked up some 1/4-inch cement board. I opted to go with this thinner sheet because this piece is already going to be extremely heavy. I measured out the dimensions that I need, and with a masonry blade on my tile saw, I'm going to cut this to size. You can also take a really sharp blade and cut it by hand. This is just a little bit faster. I had some leftover 2x6 pressure treated pieces of lumber in my inventory from another project that I did in the past, and these will be perfect when building the frame out for this table. I want something that's going to be water resistant and weatherproof, and pressure treated is perfect for that. I am going to run them through my table saw. That way I can get more use out of the scrap that I do have left over. With that done, I'm going to cut them down. It's important to keep in mind the width of that 1/4-inch cement board that I'm going to be wrapping around this frame that I do build. I found it was a little bit challenging to hold all of these boards in place while I screw and affix them together. That's where these corner clamps came in really handy while I was building out the top square and the bottom square. I'm driving in 3-inch deck screws. These again are going to be water resistant. They're not going to rust. And just to act as another set of hands, I am driving in some nails just to help me hold it in place while I'm driving those screws in. Once I get the cement board wrapped around all of this frame, it will also add quite a bit of rigidity to this cube. But in the meantime, I really want to make sure it's nice and square and shored up so that it's not going to go anywhere or fall apart while I'm trying to construct it. Taking my pieces of cement board, I'm going to dry fit them before I start screwing them in place. I just want to make sure all my measurements are correct and that everything's looking nice and tidy and square. I did opt to go with some of the scrap pieces. The sheets that this cement board came in did not give me a even number of sides, so I did go ahead and opt to have a seam down 2 of the sides. I don't think this is gonna affect the rigidity whatsoever. It's not a shower or anything that you really need to worry about waterproofing all the way through. I'm using specialty screws that are meant to go with cement board and driving them in through and attaching this cement board to that wooden frame that I just built. This can be a little bit of a tedious process as this cement board is so brittle. That's why it's really important to use these specialty screws because they're designed to actually go through that cement board a little bit easier without crumbling it completely, and that screw head does create a seal after it is driven in. I think it will be easiest to start with this table on its side and do the sides and then the top last. So I have it flipped up with one of the sides facing up, and I wanted to dry fit all the tiles and make sure everything's looking like it's lining up and going to fit perfectly. And so far so good. So now that this is done, I can go ahead and remove all the tiles all over again and start mixing up my thin set to adhere the tiles down to the cement board. I have an old bag of thin set that I'm going to try to use up first. It is pretty stuck together, so I'll see how it goes. If it's too far gone, I'll go ahead and dump it out, and I did buy a new bag. I'm going to use some masking tape to help me hold the tiles down while I'm flipping this around and moving it. I'm also going to give it a couple minutes for this to set up a little bit. It's not going to cure 100% for 24 to even 48 hours, but I need to be able to flip it around to get all the different sides. And since this isn't anything structural, it's just a side table, I'm not too worried if one of the tiles comes a little bit loose and I have to re-stick it down at a later time. I've given this piece overnight to let the thin set really cure up nice and hard. And now I can remove all of those spacers as well as the tape. Sometimes the spacers come out a little difficult just because they might have gotten a little bit of that thin set on them. The key is just to be gentle and try to wiggle them back and forth, and eventually they will come loose. You don't want to yank too hard because that thin set is still curing. It's not 100% dry. You run the risk of popping a tile off. I did have one tile pop off, which is pretty good. I was expecting to have some casualties along the way. All that I'm gonna do is I will try to scrape this down flat as much as I can, and then I will go ahead and re-adhere this. I'm not gonna let this hold up my plans for grouting. Typically, you do want the thin set to cure when you grout, but this is just one tile. It's my piece that's going in my backyard, so I think it'll be fine. Amid all the crepe myrtle blossoms that have fallen from my trees, I am going to go ahead and start mixing up just some white grout. I am using a sanded grout because I have very thick grout lines. This is just in a bright white. It's what I had left over from previous projects, and I don't know if I'm going to have enough. I'm going to mix this up and get going, and if I need to pick up another bag, I will. Grouting vertical surfaces can be a challenge, especially with this glossy, shiny tile like what I have here. I'm just using my putty knife to really work it into those cracks and those grooves. You can use a grouting float as well. I have one. I just, for whatever reason, don't really get along with them that well. After one side has been fully grouted, I am taking a wet sponge and a bucket of water and just very gently buffing away the excess grout from the surface of the tile. I'm not looking to fully clean that tile. You want to let your grout fully cure before you really remove the rest of it and that hazy finish from the surface of the tiles. But this step is still pretty important because you don't want it to dry and harden in kind of a lumpy, bumpy pattern. This will really help to smooth everything out. I purposefully let the corners and the edges be a little bit wider of a grout line than the rest of the tile. I wanted to achieve almost that angled edge and really allow those tiles to organically blend from one side of this cube to the next. It is really important, especially with this piece because it will be living outside, to come back a couple days after your grout has fully cured and really seal those grout lines. This will let them be a little bit more cleanable and just last a lot longer than if they were unsealed. With all that grout applied, I want to give it several hours to really set up and cure. It's gonna take time to cure overall, but in the meantime, I really want to get started on tidying up my back patio. I'm gonna be removing that old, dated coffee table. I'll just give it away. And these wooden chairs and benches that I made a couple years ago are really, really dusty and need a good hosing off. After thoroughly wetting them down, getting rid of all the debris, I will leave them in the sun to fully dry. And then I can start getting rid of the dust and those leaves that our big, beautiful oak trees drop and leave all over our backyard. The cushion covers went through a really quick wash cycle, and now I can put them back on the actual pads themselves and place them down. If anyone really truly has a decent solution to stop squirrels from chewing on pillows and cushions, please leave it in the comments down below. It would have to be a pet-friendly solution. We do have a dog, but oh my goodness, are they ravenous for those cushions. And true to my independent and very impatient streak, I decided to try my hand at moving this incredibly heavy table by myself before my husband got home. The two of us could have moved it easily, but I really wanted to see what it looked like while it was still daylight out. And with my little coffee table done, my back patio has received a much needed refresh. It is looking so much fresher. The cushions are cleaned up, pulled out of storage. My plants are spruced up. I have a new little area mat. And now I can sit out here and enjoy this sweltering hot summer, but at least I have good scenery, the birds are chirping, and I have yet another piece of furniture to add to the collection. Ever since I saw the inspiration of all of those little tile tables that I had seen previously, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with this old tile, and I got to reuse and recycle materials that otherwise would have gone in the landfill. I'm so glad that I had enough tile and that it came off so cleanly that I was able to do that. I am by no means a tile expert. I have done plenty of tiling in my past, lots of showers, lots of backsplashes, lots of accent walls, even some floors. But this table was a little bit different. It required some measuring, some math, some head scratching. I really wanted to avoid having to cut any tiles, so I'm very happy that I got all my dimensions correct. Thank you for coming along with me on this process, and please feel free to check out my other videos. Thank you so much.